It is time right now to really walk someplace very boldly.
This is Tread Boldly, Leadership Lessons from the Saints, with Father Nathan Cromly.
My name is Father Cromly, the president of the St. John Institute, and this is Tread Boldly, Leadership Lessons from the Saints. King David was a figure mighty in the Bible. His importance is difficult to measure, and his life story was written for us in great detail to learn from. Without a doubt, his life is put forward for us to learn from, as an example for all of us who lead in the footsteps of Christ. But not everything in David's life was perfect, far from it. And in the Bible, sometimes we're called to learn as much from the imperfections of biblical figures as we are from their perfections. And the life of David, in any case, his story is a very difficult one to read. They're stories of violence, family dysfunction, sexual immorality, and all of the gamut of human emotions. But in all of this, David gives us an example of how to respond to our own iniquities, not quitting our leadership, not pulling back from the task at hand, but rather learning to approach it with a humble and contrite heart, one that God will then use as his instrument. What might surprise many who haven't spent much time in Scripture is to read that David was not only the leader of a kingdom, but also of a family. In fact, we know that David had 8 wives and 20 named children, with more besides just that. That leads to a very complicated household. More to the point, King David seemed to have not enough time to deal well with all of the intrigues, drama, and emotional needs of the children in his own family. He was so busy with his kingdom that he had difficulty ruling at home. Does this sound familiar? Many of us who are in positions of leadership are in those positions because we possess great personal talent. Our intelligence, our drive, our discipline, the skills we've acquired along the way all have value in the eyes of the world and allow us to serve with our leadership. It can become a challenge, therefore, for us to face our children and our spouses at home when most of the time they don't require us or enable us to use and demonstrate our gifts in the same way that we can in the workforce. In the world, we could be held in high esteem, but we could be held in scorn by our spouse. In the world, we have the opportunity to demonstrate many of our skills, which are high level, and accomplish things of great renown, only to come home, however, to find that the most urgent things that we need to do are often the most basic things in life. And yet, if we do not lead at home, how can we claim the authority of character necessary to lead in the world? Oftentimes, our ability to accomplish great things in the world's eyes only masks our pride, our vanity, and our sensuality that can keep us separated from the most important people in our lives, our children and our spouses. One's tempted to think of the words of Jesus, who says that only those who have shown themselves faithful in little things merit to be given greater responsibilities. For if we cannot take care of the little things, there's no way we could take care of the greater. Or like the modern proverb so many of us know, that character is what we do when no one else is looking. We could reframe that to say leadership is how we act when we're at home. Unfortunately for the life of King David, his leadership at home was far from exemplary. Not dealing with major issues that arose in his family, not paying enough attention to his children, led his children to rebel. And for that rebellion to then spread to his entire kingdom, to the point where he himself was exiled from his throne and had to leave Jerusalem in shame. How different the history of the Bible would have been. How different and better the history of his family would have been for his children and his spouses, had David not placed appropriate priority on loving and leading his family. Maybe it's with good reason that St. Paul speaks about bishops as being men who had first been able to rule their own household. As he says so eloquently, if someone cannot run their own household, how can they effectively lead the household of God? In fact, the importance of life in the family supersedes the importance of our life in our careers, to the point where we could actually say, and perhaps should say, that our life at work is only practice for our leadership at home. If we wish to tread boldly in the ways of the world, then let us tread boldly first to claim the hearts and minds of our families and our spouses. For if the family is indeed the cell of society, those who lead their families can lead their world.
Wow, always incredible. Treading boldly. Father Nathan Cromly, of course, Dare Great Things is heard every weekend here on Annunciation Radio. In fact, it's on EWTN on all 600 stations. So
Gotta love Father Nathan.